Hello, everyone, and welcome back to your favorite St. Louis sports podcast, The Lounatics. I'm your host, Tyler, along with my friend and co-host, John, who's lovingly drinking out of his number one dad cup. And I do want to start things off. I saw the number one dad cup as we are getting started here. If you see another person with a number one dad cup or hat or shirt, do you immediately have to throw fisticuffs in public to determine who's the actual number one dad?
I mean, your logic is infallible, which it sounds like you're trying to use this to set up a fight between you and I, but you've lost everyone we've had previously, so I don't know why you want to do that.
Have we fought?
I'm just saying.
We've not had fisticuffs. I remember drunk me on a beach on a spring break trip.
That was an unfair fight. I think you would have won the wrestling matches even if you were sober, but the fact that you were like hammered and we just like provided you like stability just really ruined that whole tournament.
It was a great tournament from the bits that I remember. Also, I was so hammered, I don't think I cared whether I smashed my face into the sand. So
that also helps. When you're already off balance, all you want to do is get to the ground, right?
Yeah, I mean, it worked out great for me. So we've had a slight layoff. We've had a lot going on, both holidays, snowstorm,
Snowstorm 1 followed by Snowstorm 2 tomorrow.
So we've been busy. So we're a little bit late, but there really hasn't been a lot of big news in the St. Louis sports world. There's a lot of will he, won't he, will she, won't she, who's going to do what with the Nolan Arenado stuff, which seems like the most plausible suitor at this moment might be the Boston Red Sox. But we are in a new year, and keeping with our tradition that we've started all of our 1 year ago when we started doing this podcast, it's time for our New Year's resolution episode and what New Year's resolutions we want to see the teams and or players make in this coming year. And I think it'll be a fun one. It'll be interesting. And I think John's first resolution's already come out that he's going to throw fisticuffs with anybody else who has a number one dad anything while he's drinking out of his cup. So I'm proud of you, John. Keep working out, stay in shape, because don't want to run into one of those dads that can take you. So
That's true. Which, the other thing while we're talking about is, technically you and I are in different weight classes, right? So we should probably just go ahead and have, the weight class divisions technically. But
I mean, honestly, that would be smarter.
Yeah.
I up the other dad and see if he's in your weight class before
Yeah. Exactly.
That guy looks like he could bench 8 of me. He's definitely not in my weight class.
Yes, exactly. That's a good New Year's resolution, though. I've actually put not as much thought into this one as I did a year ago when we did this episode. And the reason why is because I feel like saying for all 3 teams, the goal for this year should be to make the playoffs, considering none of them did last year. That seems a little too simple. And okay, we're 3.5 minutes in and the podcast is over because I've already said what the obvious goal is.
Yeah, well, it was a great episode, everyone. Stan Kroenke. No,
Right, exactly.
So, yeah, I think that's the obvious one. Somebody needs to make the playoffs this year. I think for 2 of our teams, there's some similar goals here. For another team, I think it's a little different. So I'll go first with my Cardinals.
Okay,
we'll start with them because I think they're kind of an easy one. I really think, and they've said they're going to do this, but God knows they said they were going to do this many times in the past. Their New Year's resolution needs to be let the young kids play. Let the kids play. Let them get the experience. If this is what we're doing, we have to give them runway. We've got to give them leeway. We got to see what we actually have. Whatever that looks like, right? You're going to have struggles. You're going to have ups and downs. You may, in a perfect storm right now, Cardinals might be hoping for, an 81, 82, 83 season would be a really good year with the amount of youth and experience we have. I mean, we just don't know how a lot of these guys are going to perform at the major league level over the span of a season. But that's my first one, right? That's my big one for the Cardinals is let the kids play. and see what they do. I don't know if you had other thoughts in there. I mean, I have some other things in here, other resolutions they need to get through too. Um, but that's my first one for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I mean that's their stated objective, right, for this year. So, like, yeah, it's kind of an obvious one again, but that is exactly what they've said that they're going to do this year. Now, there are some, parts to that that still are up in the air. You touched on it a little bit ago that we don't know what the status of Nolan Arenado is going to be. And, I think they already have an idea of what the roster construction will look like. But that is completely dependent upon moving Arenado and cutting his portion of the payroll completely. Because if they don't move him, they're going to have to move on probably from some of the pitchers, which I think they really don't want to do because I think they wanted to have a lot of veteran, some veteran leadership there in the pitching staff with the young guys that we're hoping to bring up. So that's still up in the air. I have another one for you, and this is actually a goal. I like a win goal. I think that this team should aim for 86 wins, and that might be slightly out of reach for them. But I feel like if they have an 86 win season this year, like we would probably all say, you know what, that's probably mission accomplished with what we said we were going to do this year as far as personnel.
I think an 86 win season would be a huge success for this team this year.
Right.
I don't know that they're going to get there, but I agree. I think that would be a huge win goal. And you kind of touched on it a little bit here, as far as like figure out what they need to do with the Arenado. I think with the let the kids play piece, and I know it may not sit well with Arenado or others, but if that means Arenado sits a lot more this year, I think if he's still on the roster, I think you have to do it.
Yeah. I mean, Gorman and Walker, you could make the case for either of them. One of them needs to be the starting third baseman. And like they're both being hindered by playing elsewhere. Right? Gorman is not a second baseman. Walker is clearly not much of an outfielder. Um, like
and
one of them
and
needs to be a third base.
realistically, in my mind, I think it makes the most sense for Gorman to move to third. He still plays third on occasion,
Sure.
and he's been in the infield, but opening second base for Donovan to play second base again, and he's a Gold Glove caliber second baseman. To put him at second, and open up the outfield for Newt Bar, you put Walker in right, and then you've got center field for Ciani slash uh, Victor Scott the second, or VS2, or as you like to say, Victor Scott 2.
Victor Scott too, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Absolutely. Does Walker not make more sense as DH though? I guess it really comes down to Burley and
I think Burley and Contreras are going to be your DHs. I could see Walker playing some DH, in putting Burley, in the outfield and things, moving people around. You kind of have those three pieces, and Gorman too. It's going to need days off, but if Arenado's still on the roster, he's gonna also factor into that a little bit as far as days off and things. But I think one of the big things the Cards need to do, and again, another one, is figure out who they're moving on from and move on. If we're moving Arenado, accept the fact that we might have to eat some of his salary and move the guy. I mean, the guy was a good
that's
player.
Not the problem.
It's finding a suitor. It's finding somebody who wants him. And they're waiting for, and everyone's waiting for what's his face from Houston to sign before
Bregman.
Anybody wants to make moves. Yep.
Yeah. See, yeah, because I mean, I feel like it's important to mention here that we were going to eat some of his salary with the move to Houston that he declined. And then Houston went out and signed a third baseman the next day. But like the problem is that there's not many of the teams he wants to go to. Only like the Red Sox are in it still, possibly for him. There was some reporting earlier today that he might be willing to expand his no trade list, or I guess his trade list, the teams that he's willing to go to.
His destination list.
His destination list, yeah. So we'll see. I think moving on is best for him. It's best for the Cardinals. But it's all about finding the right package. They're not going to let him go for pennies, right? But still got to find that right deal. And unfortunately, that right deal was Houston, and he said he was be willing to go there, and then he changed his mind like immediately after. So
Yeah, you've got them, and so they have that one. The other one is Helsley. We just signed Helsley to a 1 year deal, 8 mil to avoid arbitration.
arbitration, yeah,
Um,
yeah, to avoid
and
arbitration.
yeah, and so we have him signed. He's a huge piece. He's a huge get. The problem is that his value will be much higher at the deadline than it is right now, assuming he pitches well. Um, because if he pitches well, the teams that are real close are going to be willing to pay a much higher price than a team would right this second for him, in hopes that maybe they go on a run. And it seems crazy to think about, but if he has a good season and you've got that team that's like, oh, we're a closer away, or feels like they are a lockdown reliever away, they're going to spend a lot more then just because they need him right then for the run.
Right.
Um, and
And
so I
that's
could see that
also,
being the case. But if they get the right deal or a deal that is worthwhile now, they need to take it.
I don't think they're going to move Helsley right now. I could see him possibly moving at the deadline. I think they're more looking at starters as far as moving from for the pitching staff. I do think we could find ourselves in the same situation with Nolan Arenado come trade deadline. And so there's a lot up in the air for the Cardinals right now. There's been a lot of reporting that even though they are going to this youth movement, that they are not throwing away this season, that they are still trying to compete. And that's the balance they're trying to run right now, is how do they compete while also playing the young guys. And so if they can achieve a winning season, several games above what is 500, like that's going to be a successful season if they also do the youth movement.
I agree. I think, but I think understanding who you want to move and when you want to move them, and pulling the trigger and making those moves is going to be huge for them this year. So, aside from letting the kids play, knowing who you're going to play or who has a spot, and moving them, it's going to be huge. In addition to that, that includes potentially some of those young guys. If you realize that they're not going to be a part of your future, you think there's a chance they're not going to, and you're not going to use them, move on. Move on now and get rid of them while their value's still high. I don't want to see another Dylan Carlson situation.
Yeah, that we don't need to go back into that. You and I have beat that one as
Yeah,
much as
well,
it can.
I would rather see another situation where one of our guys goes off and has a ridiculous season and a half somewhere else, and then kind of falls back into like an average player again, than to watch somebody that we say no, we're never going to get rid of and get nothing back for, when we could have had quite a return from earlier on.
Yep. Yep.
So, all right. I jumped us off with the Cardinals. Who do you want to jump into next? Unless you have more Cardinal stuff.
I don't have more Cardinal stuff. I think theirs is pretty straightforward and simple. I think I'd like to do the Blues next. Actually, I think that makes the most sense right now. So at this point, Blues are of course mid-season, right? And I think for them, I haven't really decided on what I think is a good point total for them. I do think that they are still definitely in the wild card hunt, and I think the first thing there is you have to make that second wild card spot.
I think that's the goal for the season, right? I think they want to be there. I think consistency looms, which kind of leads into mine, which is, Blues need to find consistency and find consistency against the bad teams in the league.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say, too, since I just mentioned that, they are only 2 points behind Vancouver, but Vancouver has 3 games in hand. So that, even though it's a narrow lead, it could very quickly become a pretty wide lead. And they also have to jump Calgary, who also have 3 games in hand and an extra point. So I don't know. I'm not confident the Blues pull off that first goal that I gave. I think consistency is a good one. I really kind of thought they were going for it this year, but I don't know, if we start playing better down the back half of the season, and are looking really good. I am okay with that if we don't make the playoffs this year. If we get, that means that we are actually building something and we're going to start off strong next season.
I get that. Yeah, I can see that. Um, yeah, no, like I said, I think big one for me is consistency and consistency against bad teams. Um, my next big thing here is it kind of goes back to a little bit picking up on the Cardinals, but let some of these kids play. If you've got young guys that are ready and you have an opening, get them out there and give them a runway and let them see what they've got. I think they're doing a great job with Bolduc on the third line, giving him a lot of time and runway and leeway. I think the current development plan for Bolduc reminds me a lot of Robert Thomas when he first kind of started in the league and spent a lot of time kind of on that third line pairing as he was learning to be a centerman, but initially was kind of on the wings on some of the higher lines, but moved around some. And I kind of see Bolduc's development plan. I'm not saying he's going to be another Robert Thomas, but I feel like they're doing it the right way with him. I think Dalibor Dvorsky is somebody that keep an eye on. Just showed
Yep.
out at the World Juniors. I think he had 9 total points. Is that right? I have it pulled up. Hold on.
That might be right.
Yes, 9 total points, 5 goals, 4 assists. Whereas actually showing out more so than I expected. Although 4 of those points I think came against Kazakhstan, who got relegated, but Jacob Stansel had a really, really good one. And then the other name to think about it is Otto Stenberg, the Swede, had a really, really good, had 8 points himself. So we had a few guys that really showed out, and those are just the tip of the eye. Those are just the top 3 point getters. We had other guys, tons of guys getting points. We had 22 goals and 30 assists accounted for by Blues prospects in the World Juniors.
Yeah. And Blues prospects dominated that in the last round too, right?
Yes,
Like a
last
year
year was
ago,
another
last
big
year was
year
the
for
same way.
us.
Yeah. So, I mean, the future I think is very bright for the Blues. Like, we are very excited about the younger guys. We just need to keep developing them and bring them up to the top level. And I think this team, it feels really bad to say it, but I think this team is going to be really, really good in 2 years.
Yeah. I think the other name we didn't play in the World Juniors, but is Jimmy Snuggerud. And after the Frozen Four, there's a good chance we see him maybe for a stretch run if we're close. That could be kind of like a trade, like a late deadline type piece.
Yep.
I think it'll be interesting. I think looking at the year as a whole, I think my goal is those guys that we're mentioning right now is to see them in camp before next season. Right? When I say let the kids play, get them in camp, see what they've got, see where they're at, and then make sure that they're ready to play. And if they're not ready to play at the NHL level, let them play, but keep them in the AHL. But make sure that these guys are getting plenty of minutes and that they're developing in the right way so that they're ready to contribute. I think some of these young guys are going to be playing on your St. Louis Blues and on here in St. Louis next season. Several of these guys will be, and I think it'll be real exciting and interesting to see how it pans out. But you never know what's going to happen.
You don't, do you?
Do you have anything else for the Blues? Because I got one more.
I'll let you go.
My last one for the Blues is figure out your goalie situation. And this
That's a good one. That's a really good one, though.
Sounds easier said than done. I was on the Blues fan forum a little bit ago, and I got some flack online because Jacob posted a clip, and it cut in with me saying, if you're going to trade him, this is what you need to do. What he did was he cut out the part right before that where I said, I don't think you should trade Binnington, but if you're going to trade Binnington or think you're going to,
that doesn't get clicks, right?
No,
this is why he's a better podcaster than we are, right? He knows how to edit appropriately to get people engaged.
Oh, and he did. They were out. They were hot. But I do think if you think there's a chance you could trade Benner in the next couple years, you do it while his stock's high and you move on. I don't think they're going to, and I still don't think that's the right move. But again, because you still got easily 3 good years out of Benner, assuming he doesn't just fall off a cliff. Then again, you saw what happened with Arenado and Goldie. But you just said it, right? In 2 years, this team's going to be really good, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to have a goalie still to be able to get you there. And even if at that point Benner's the 1B and Hofer moves into the 1A, that's fine. But for this season, you really need to know who your 1A is, get him out there, get some confidence in him, and make sure that he is your 1A and ready, because that's the guy you want starting playoff games. So who is that right now? And honestly, I couldn't, it's going to be Bennington based on track record right now, but neither one has looked great recently.
Yeah. I mean, we had a couple of six goal games, right? Like, that's just bad all around. Granted, didn't they score 6 tonight? After I'm sitting here talking about how they let in
we
too
won
much.
6-2 tonight.
Yeah,
so
but still, they've just got to clean it up, and I don't know what the answer is, but this team I don't know. I remember thinking like a few months ago when we were like getting ready to start the season, we had Broberg, we were getting really excited about it. And I remember thinking that this team had to be better this year than they were last year. And so far they have not been overall better. So I don't know. I'm a little sad about that.
yeah, I have the same issues, right? Where I felt like this team was going to take a step forward this year. Like maybe not a massive step, but a solid step forward.
A step.
Yeah, and in some regards, they really have. One player that I will point out what I felt has taken a solid step forward is Jordan Kyrou.
So that's a big statement coming from you.
Yeah. Okay. Listen, I will rip players a new asshole and talk about how I think they're terrible. But you know what? You're getting paid millions of dollars for me to say that, so it's fine. You can deal with that. And honestly, they're never going to hear me say it anyway, because there's only like 6 people listening to this.
That's fair.
But Kyrou has improved his game. I will say, watching games and things, he is playing a much more complete game, and you're seeing it right now, right? He's actually, his points are going up as well. But a lot of those chances and those opportunities he's getting are directly coming from him playing defense and playing a full 200-foot game that is giving him the opportunity for some of these breaks and some of these windows. And he's playing as more of a complete player just around across the board. He's playing a little bit smarter. He still does stupid things. And again, I said it earlier this season, right? And I'll say it again, but I've kind of tried to come, and we talked about, I think, last episode before, a couple episodes ago, of Kyrou understanding that he's going to be what he's going to be, right? He's going to have holes in his game, and it's up to our coaching staff when they're, setting up lines and setting up matchups to put him in a position to succeed. But some of those boneheaded error issues or things that he does are the same thing that we praise him for the next night because it works, and all of a sudden he's got a highlight reel goal. And so that's just one of those things you sometimes have to live with some of these players. I mean, Brett Hull was not playing a 200-foot game and coming back and backtracking or anything else. He was sitting waiting for the puck so he could go put the puck in the back of the net. Now, if Kyrou stops playing defense, but it's going to give me 80 goals in a season, you don't have to play defense at that point.
Right. God, Brett Hull, he's just a whole ass vibe. Pun not intended, but it works. Whole ass vibe. Yeah.
Trademark.
Yeah, we just trademarked that. Nobody filed the paperwork. We did a verbal trademark. It's binding. Yeah. We've watched The Office. We know it's real.
Yeah. Suck on that, Jacob. It's ours now.
That's right. He's totally going to steal that, though, when we tell him about it. Because he doesn't listen to this. I guarantee it.
He does.
Does
actually?
He?
Yeah, because he'll give me shit every now and then on the side when I say something stupid on here. Which
so
is pretty much every episode.
Yeah. Makes sense. Oh, God. You want to move on to City?
I think I'm ready to move on to City. Your number one dad cup is really making me want to come over there and fight you,
Eh,
though. All right. St. Louis City. Do you want to start on this one or not? You want me to go
you can
first?
start.
My first
You
one.
can go first.
My first goal for St. Louis City is big New Year's resolution is find ways to win games.
Oh,
Um,
come on. You got to come up with more specific
and I'm
resolutions.
coming into it. You got to give me a minute.
We're
So last
25 minutes
season,
in.
well played. So my issue is that we had so many opportunities to win games and close out games last season, and we couldn't do it. So when I say win games, whatever, it's winning the games that we should. Like, you're in the lead in the last 15 minutes. Don't give up a point and lead to another draw. We drew so many. I mean, we joked about it last season. We recorded and even a ton, even more offline about, like, oh, well, we're only like second in the league in losses, but we'd only won one game. So, like, we can't keep drawing games. Those games that you have the opportunity to win, we have to find ways to win, especially if we want to return back to being a playoff caliber team.
Well, and I don't know if at the end of the season it stayed this way, but very close to the end of the season, like the last 3 or 4 games, they were actually leading MLS in points dropped from a winning position. It's something like 30 points, if I remember right. So, absolutely, I think that's a great resolution for them. I'm going to go a little specific here. I want to say finish top 4, so make semifinals of one of the trophies in which they are competing, which we think will be 3: Open Cup, Supporter Shield, and MLS Cup. So the easiest of those is going to be Open Cup. And this is presuming that they're not in Leagues Cup, which we don't know for sure, but there's a lot of information out there indicating that it will only be the top 18 teams from last season competing in Leagues Cup this year. So Open Cup's definitely going to be the easiest. I think that's going to fit very well with what our fans want. I think a lot of people that are fans of this team want to see a commitment to the Open Cup. But also, I mean, that's making semifinals in the playoffs, right? For MLS Cup. And granted, if we are fourth best in the Shield standings, which I think we were in 2023 when we won the West, like, we're not going to complain about that. We're going to be pretty happy. So, top 4, preferably in a knockout tournament. There we go.
I think that's a solid one. My next one is also pretty specific,
Okay.
but it actually relates to just 2 players. Get Thomas Ostrak and get Celio Pompeu back in the lineup, get them healthy and get them rolling,
Yeah.
because our team is much more dangerous when when they are playing and they're healthy,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be in a sub role, a starting role, whatever it happens to be. Those 2 guys showed themselves to be difference makers last year, and you could see the difference in our team when both of them, after they both went down with injuries, until the reinforcements arrived.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah, because the first game without Ostrak was the Cincinnati game. We lost at LA or against LAFC because of Marcanic's yellow. Well, not because of, but there's indications we were going to possibly get a draw out of that game, and then it just wasn't happening. And then Ostrak got hurt the next day. And obviously, we remember what happened to Celio. I'm going to be paying very close attention. Preseason starts next week, and I'm going to be really closely watching any videos and pictures that they post of practice to see if they're out on the field with the other guys. We haven't heard anything about Ostrak. You have to presume he is closer to coming back than Celio, just because the nature of his injury was substantially less severe and he was able to start his rehab earlier. But he's also not as visible as Celio is. Celio is very active on his social media, so you know exactly what's going on in his life most of the time. I've got another one for you. And I don't know how many minutes, but I want to say, I don't know if this is an appropriate amount or not. I would like to see Caden Glover get 500 MLS minutes this year.
I'm over here doing the math, and our listeners are probably, especially on their podcast, are going to be like, "Did it cut out?" I'm like, "No, no, no." I'm thinking. Um, so you think 32 games, right?
And that,
Or is it
let
34?
me
34
rephrase that.
games.
Let me rephrase that. 500 minutes across all comps. That does include Open Cup.
Okay, okay. That makes me feel better. So you're
Yeah.
probably talking 40 to 45 games, depending how far you make it in some of these things. We'll say 40.
I'm
Because
removing
it's 34 games for MLS.
MLS. We'll say
So we'll say
think
get
it's up
6
to
games across
6 at
other
Open
stuff.
Cup. Yeah, and that
So,
that is of course excluding MLS Next Pro. That is just with the first team.
yeah.
500 first team minutes. Yeah.
We'll say 40 games. So you're saying of those, maybe average, 12 minutes a game. I mean,
Yeah.
that's reasonable, 13 minutes a game. Because if he gets a few starts in there, especially in the early rounds of US Open Cup, he should be able to get some serious minutes. I think that's a reasonable.
Yeah.
It's reasonable.
Yeah.
It's just
I
whether
mean,
or not we get it there.
right.
Do you think he gets more minutes than McScorley?
Yes. Yeah. He's already on a first team contract. McScorley isn't. And I don't think they have space to sign McScorley to a first team contract. So, and this is before we even talk about the 3 draft picks from this year, right? Who they also have to figure out where they're going to sign. So, and I think we hope that Glover is, yeah, because Glover can dress as many times as needed because he's on a first team contract. So, yeah, no, I think he will have more minutes than McScorley. I do think they also need to figure out what they're going to do with Vincel and Perez. I think putting them in MLS Next Pro with City 2 this year would be a waste for both of them. I think they both need good, high quality USL Championship minutes again for Perez. But I think Vincel would also really, really, I'm not sure what the word I'm wanting to use, but let's say it would be a very good thing for him. It would benefit him immensely.
So here's where I stand on the Vincel thing, and make it short, sweet, and to the point. Is we re-signed Yarrow. We thought Yarrow would get taken in the draft, the open, and he didn't. So we have Yarrow. We have Hebert, and we still have. I mean, I don't even. You really want to get Nielsen? You've got Horn, who can still play center back as well. We have plenty of center back depth, even if we had an injury or two. It makes the most sense to me right now because we still have Yarrow to send Vincel to USL team.
Oh, absolutely.
Because he's not going to sniff the field at the current state, and he needs to be playing against men and not against kids. I mean, you and I have both watched enough Next Pro games, either in person or, for me, I've done most of them streaming, and that Vincel is miles ahead of the competition.
Yeah.
Of what he's playing. You can tell he's a men amongst boys.
Yeah.
He needs to go play against men, and he needs to get out in the USL and really learn the game.
Yeah.
Miggy is the same way. I think it'd be good for him to have another year in the USL and somewhere where he's going to get more minutes, hopefully, than what he did at Birmingham. So wherever he goes needs to be somewhere that he's getting a decent amount of playing time for him at this point. And same thing with Vincel. They both need more playing time, more minutes. So I like that. I think that's a solid one. I think we should, they renamed City Park, Energizer Park or whatever.
They did.
I think they should, put underneath there, home to Bundesliga 2 US.
Yes. Yes. For the record on the minutes conversation again, Perez, who played almost every game for Birmingham Legion, he played a lot. He played in 29 games. He only had 676 minutes last year, despite appearing in 29 games.
He came in as a second half sub a lot.
He had a lot of 25 to 30 minute games, and then that really tailed off towards the end. So I think those are two of the big ones. I think. Yeah, and I think that's really kind of all you can say about it right now. we could do individual players if we wanted, like Roman Berkey, goalkeeper of the year again, obviously, right? Klaus scored double-digit goals again.
I think I think the other big thing that you want to see for, and it is more of a team goal as well, but
Oh, I got a
um
new one. I got a new one when you go. Please keep going.
it's to see a more cohesive attack through all the way through, and continue to see. You saw it more towards the end of the year, and really, once the reinforcements arrived and Durkin really holding down the eight allowed Leuven to kind of come out of his shell offensively and became a much bigger player playing off of those guys. Um, you want to see that continue because it made us much more creative offensively, much more dangerous. Obviously, we started to score more goals. And that was something that we kind of struggled with at times is we were very one-dimensional offensively, weren't super creative. Celio Pompeu, I think, still led the team in
Progressive carries or something like that.
progressive carries or progressive things where he was taking on defenders, even though he missed half the season after breaking his leg. So that tells you where we're at there. And I think the big thing there is that we actually became more cohesive again and more aggressive, albeit in a different style. But I think, having that cohesiveness is important. I do have one that's player specific, but I'll let you do yours first before I do my last player specific one.
Get a win against Seattle and LAFC. We have gotten one draw against LAFC. Otherwise, we have 3 losses. We have never gotten a result against Seattle. They have beaten us every single time. And one of the games this year, the one at City Park, if I remember right, was one that City looked like they were going to win it. They went up 1-0 and then ended up losing 2-1, I think. So anyway, that's
No,
going to be one of the ones
yeah,
that I have.
I love that. Yeah, finally beat the powerhouses. LA Galaxy, we've had their number since day one.
Generally
But
speaking, yeah. I
LA,
mean, we did draw them 3 times, but
did we draw them 3 times?
yeah, because they were the ones who went 1-1, 2-2, 3-3, and
Oh yeah,
then
and then
in
we
the
finally
game,
beat them.
and then we finally beat them. Yeah, but so, but those have always been fun games. I think we match up really well with the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, LAFC is always like, and they always seem to rotate against us. Oh, that's another thing. We don't have to play them midweek this year, which is awesome. But it always seems like we rotate and they rotate, and that LAFC squad is so deep. So anyway, please
My
continue.
my my last thing is player specific,
Okay.
but it's nothing super crazy. It's for Indy to keep being Indy. Everyone
Yes.
needs Indy in their life. Everyone needs the stash. Everyone needs the ridiculousness, the just stupid things he says, does, the social media stuff that City posts of him harassing teammates. Indy needs to keep being Indy for this, and it's just one of those locker room type presence guys. And again, he's still a spark plug of a player. I mean, he didn't have any crazy games
Reed, he's
this year where
short.
he just, he didn't have any crazy games this year where he just went off. But think about the Sporting Kansas game 2 years
The
ago
first
where
one.
he just
Yeah.
where he just more or less took the game over.
Yeah.
And so I think Indy to keep being Indy
Yeah.
and doing Indy things. One, it keeps me amused. But more importantly, I think it keeps the team a little bit looser and a little bit more ready to go.
So he's at the men's national team camp right now, and there's a big gap between this camp and being called into the first team, so to say, for the men's national team. But you have to think he is a really, really good comp for Brendan Aronson.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Yeah.
like, I'm not saying that if Brendan Aronson goes down with an injury that Indy is like the guy that gets called in, but the things that you would ask Brendan Aronson to do are, I think, the things that Indy does really, really well. And so I could see him being a backup's backup, right? In that regard for the like true first team.
I could see him being dressed on the 18-man roster at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, especially like I said, if Aronson can't go and you just want a guy like, and especially in Posh's system, because Posh really wants, active pressing nonstop. And you're like, hey, we're 60 minutes in and I just need someone to go out there and pressure the ball for 30 minutes without stopping to take a breath. Like, Indy is a guy who can do that.
Oh God, yeah. And I mean, like that stash.
That's
You
Dash.
never want to see that coming at you.
That's true.
I I would love for him to do like a reverse frosted tip on the tips of his stash, where like the tips of them are dark on the curl, just because it's something I think Indy would do, and it'd be absolutely stupid looking, but
Yeah.
Indy could do it.
One thing that I think St. Louis City needs is we need some serious swag with the hair. You know what I mean? Like, we don't have anyone that's doing anything really like bright dyed or anything like that. And I think we need.
Celio is right now. Did you see his
Oh
social
yeah,
media
Celio
stuff?
is. Yeah.
He's
He
got
went
his
blonde.
stuff
I forgot
straight
that.
bleach right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. There we go. There it is. Bring Celio back. Uh, absolutely. Although, did you notice too? So, Toy Shirt and Horn were on the same flight back from Germany, right? Did you see that picture? And Toy Shirt is wearing that same flower sweater that he clearly loves because he wears it
Oh yeah.
all the time.
Yeah. No, he wears the shit out of that sweater. It's a nice sweater.
It's a
want
nice
the
sweater,
to be honest. What I would love would be to see like one of our other players try to one up Celio or Indy and do something ridiculous and like dye their hair in like stripes or something crazy, and just I'd be here for it. Just out of a, and then for the interview and be like, so what were you thinking with your hair? And it's like, well, Indy had the stash, so.
Who do you think of the guys on this team? Who do you think is most likely that they would try to do that against Celio and Indy?
The person I think who's crazy enough to do it is Durkin.
No, Durkin gives me very good old boy, straight laced vibes.
I think he's crazy enough to do it, even at least as a joke. Like, I'm not saying like it would be like a, but like if you said somebody
Like
was
that
going to
dye
do it,
he could wash out, like
yeah,
that night. Yeah,
I could see Durkin doing like something as a joke to do whatever. Somebody who would actually do it and keep it.
my initial vibes of Baumgartel is that he would do it. Those are, or Kessler. I could see Kessler doing that for kicks.
I could maybe.
He just doesn't have enough hair.
The other one would be Nerwinski, but he's not.
I could see Nerwinski having like a pattern shaved into his head.
I could see him having like a lightning bolt shaved into the side of his hair. Yeah. That's very. Nerwinski 100% had that as a kid at some point.
For sure. For sure he did. Absolutely. 100%
Nurk was the kid with the lightning bolt in the side of his head.
Yes. Yes, he was. Oh, man.
So did you see that they have officially moved so I was trying to keep track and I was going to update you here on the college football playoff, but it looks like Notre Dame officially won 27-24.
Did they, when we started, it was tied 24-24 with like 4 minutes left, but Notre Dame had the ball, so I figured it was going to be them.
Yeah, so Notre Dame won for NFL playoffs. They, with the wildfires, I've been getting some images from some family members. My mom's cousin lives out in the LA area, and he's been sending us pictures as he was being evacuated. With the wildfires, they moved the NFL playoff game on Monday to Arizona. So closer still to LA. Not quite the same home field advantage. But if I'm being honest, it's probably because Stan Kroenke's a dick. He probably doesn't really deserve to have extra games at SoFi Field. So with that, Stan Kroenke, we hate you. Happy New Year's and good night, everybody.